Hey there, welcome to East and West. Let's talk about the Avian Kind. This is a film that was first screened near the end of February of 2014, and it follows this guy, a writer that's been searching for his wife since she disappeared almost 15 years ago. Then one day he gets a call from a strange woman who claims that she knew his wife before she disappeared, and who offers to take him on the hunt to find her. What we learn as the film goes on is that there's actually been a number of women who've disappeared over the years, and that they've all left on their own accord to join up with a cult mystic who claims that he can give them the type of life that they desire. And intercut with the main story, the film also follows two women that are in fact trying to seek out this mystic. What's actually happening to these women? What does this pseudo-cult leader have planned? This is basically the driving mystery throughout the whole film, and let's just say the film kind of fails to deliver on that. Okay, so let's start with what this film does right. This is a film that is very, very heavy on its atmosphere, by which I mean two things. One, this is a film that has exceptionally good control over its ambience and tone, and B, a very large number of these scenes are shot in fog. It does manage to work to this advantage though, because this film is a one to look at. It's filled with great shots of scenery and landscapes, which is good, because it's basically the only thing the film has to keep you interested. That said, these picturesque shots would probably be a lot more effective if it wasn't for the fact that this film has a very weird obsession with using extreme far shots. Extreme shots like that, they work good to set scenery or to build like a sense of scale around it, but it happens basically every other shot in this film. It's really irritating. Even when there's stuff going on that we might want to actually see happening. And nowhere can I illustrate this better than from this scene that's basically right at the start of the movie. I have rewatched this scene numerous times now. I still cannot tell you who these characters are, what's going on, or even why this scene is happening. Granted, that last part might have less to do with the visual style, and much more to do with the film's editing. I mentioned when I was explaining the plot of this movie that there's two stories going on at once. There's the protagonist trying to find his wife, and then the story of these two women trying to find this cult leader. Here's the thing, these two stories are not actually happening at the same time. The two women that we're following are in fact the writer's wife and the woman he's currently traveling with right now. Now before any of you start crying spoiler, let me just explain this, okay? It really isn't a spoiler. Or at the very least, it isn't intended to be a spoiler. There is actually a scene very early on in the film that does establish that these two stories are going on at different chronological times. The problem is the fact that because of the way this film is edited, this scene is so unclear and over so fast that the first time I watched this film, I completely missed that that's what it was trying to say. And so it wasn't until halfway through the film where they meet up with this doctor character for the second time that I managed to realize a couple of things. First, that this guy looks a lot like Michael Keaton, but more importantly, that these two characters are in fact meant to be the same person. The thing is, this editing, it's all throughout the film. The cuts that they use are just painful to watch. There is barely a smooth transition in this entire movie. There's a scene right at the end of the film where, okay, I get what they were going for. Okay, in the final moments of the film, they keep rapidly switching back and forth between timelines to basically juxtapose the fact that similar events are happening now than happened 15 years ago. So I get what they were trying to do, but the way they do it is so angular and so choppy, it's just not enjoyable to watch in the slightest. And this isn't even just when they're switching the storylines, okay? This is within the storylines too. Especially this part, which is just... Okay, this is from an action scene close to the end of the film, alright? Let's ignore the abysmal use of the extreme wide shots that I mentioned earlier, and as well as the painfully slow editing that you would want in a gun shootout like this. Please note that now there's snow, and then there isn't. And now there is. And now there isn't. This is meant to be a single scene. How could anyone possibly see this in editing and not see that something is going wrong? Let's focus on something else this film does poorly. The characters. they barely matter in the slightest. There is nothing to them. They have the bare minimum of motivation to prevent them from actually being random characters, and that's it. And the ones that do have more than that are arguably the most useless. And that doesn't help the fact that the acting in this movie is consistently south of average. There is hardly an emotion to be found in this movie. I'd say the two that come closest are the main female lead, sometimes, and this hunter character that we meet near the end of the film, which, okay, he actually does a pretty good job. And that's basically all the praise I have left for this movie. You see, near the middle of this film, the two protagonists get invited to a warehouse where they meet up with a bunch of other characters that are even more useless than they are. When they arrive, this scene happens.
옆에 아가씨는 누구예요? 우리랑 같은 사람이에요?
And when this scene first came up, I said, straight to my screen, I don't know. We are almost an hour into this movie. This woman is very clearly the secondary protagonist of the movie, and I can barely tell you a thing about her. Now in her case, we do learn a little bit more about her as the film goes on, but the thing is, she is one of the few. This is a guy who lives all the way up in the mountains that apparently knows this mystic they're all searching for. How does he know him? What are his motivations? I don't know. If you cut out every scene with him, you wouldn't miss a thing. This is the daughter of the main protagonist. We spend 10 full minutes at the start of this film giving her some character. And after that's done, she never appears in the film again. She doesn't even get mentioned. If you cut out every scene with her in it, you wouldn't miss a thing in this movie. The two protagonists eventually get hired by a wealthy lady whose daughter has also gone missing, and she assigns two creepy-looking agents to watch over them. Now that's actually kind of fair, they actually have a bearing on the plot, but then this Sheila joins up with them. I don't know who she is, nor do I know why they let her stay with them. If you cut out every scene with her, you would lose nothing from this film, and that is basically the film's biggest problem in a nutshell. The way it is now, this should have been a short film, 30, 40 minutes at the max. Yet for some reason, they decide to stretch it out to almost 2 hours, and have nothing to fill it. And to top it all off, there's also a sense, at least to me, throughout this entire film that I'm missing something. There are plenty of times in this movie that characters go on long speeches about freedom and belonging and stuff like that. The whole bird metaphor that's locked right into the damn title. The opening sequence, it's an obvious flash forward to two guys discussing planes and flight and stuff like that. The symbolism could not be more obvious, and I don't get it. I can't tell if this film just thinks it's saying more than it is, or if it's doing a very bad job at saying the things it actually is saying. Either way, it fails, and it's that sense of righteousness that the film has that turns it from being boring into being tedious. All in all, I only recommend this if you don't mind something that is a lot more style over substance. I give this film 2 parrots and 6 seagulls. So that was my review of The Avian Kind. Thanks so much for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Till next time.